I hope that you're having as good of a time at the FDC as I am. I'm like filled with joy. You know, I love seeing the old friendships, building new acquaintances, and I'm excited for our time here today. I want to thank Lynn Daniel for setting the theological groundwork for us, doing a great job, and also being so open. I really, really appreciate that. My name is Joe Stearns. I'm one of the elders, one of the ministers from the Broward Church, so I say hi from Fort Lauderdale. And in the past, one of my ministry responsibilities was overseeing small groups. So my particular message to work with Lynn's is I'm going to be a lot more practical. So I have a couple of lists we're going to go through of making our small groups better, making them thrive. I am going to give a little bit of theory, but mostly practical stuff. And I'm really grateful that God puts the lonely in families, aren't you? Amen. Psalm 68, God puts the lonely in families. One of the ways to do that, of course, is with our church small groups. And our family of churches has a rich heritage of small groups. Even before we were called to ICOC in the campus ministry, it was marked by small groups and discipling. I would like to show you, I found a photo of my first small group. So, can we get that? Let me go back. All right, can you show that? I'll be right here. All right. So, back in the day, it was culturally relevant to call something a soul talk. Soul talk. And I was 18 years old. I was baptized off the campus at the University of Florida. They got Sheridan Wright, who served in the ministry in New York City. Keith West, who led the Lexington, Kentucky church. I remember every one of those guys. That was my family. That was you know how birds will build nests for their young so that their young could be secure, so they have a place to nurture the young. This was my nest. This was how I started off my spiritual journey. That's the next year, a little bit of a larger group. You might be able to pick out, if you know them, a very young Sherwin McIntosh. They're on the second row. So that was my home. That was what got me started. Perhaps I'm here today and still faithful because of the groundwork and the foundations I found in that small group as a brand new Christian. What do you call your small groups? One of the things you could call them is a church small group. Another one is a soul talk. I think it's no longer culturally relevant to call them that. You know, in Korea, I heard there's some big churches there that call their small groups cells, like the cell of a body, not like a prison cell, but you know, the body cell. You could call it a life group, a family group. We used to call them EBSs, Evangelistic Bible Studies. For a long time, it was the Bible talk. I just want to let you know that in the Broward Church, we decided to rename our small groups for a reason, and I'll go over that reason a little bit, but we now call our small groups community groups. So I might call them Bible talks because of all the decades as a Bible talk. I might call them small groups. I might call them community groups. I'm going to, do that interchangeably. You guys know a small group is usually anywhere from 5 or 6 people up to 20 people or even more at times that usually do not meet at a church building or a church rented facility. They usually meet in people's homes. And what I'd like to do for the message that I have is to talk about the value of small groups, how to choose a purpose for your small group, and building loving small groups, and then ways to improve your small groups. And once again, I really want to thank Lynn's for laying down a good foundation for that. So, are you guys ready to plunge in here? All right, value of a small group. Why is a small group valuable? Well, in Mark chapter 3, it says Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to them those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12. Why? That they might be with him, and then he might send them out to preach. Was Jesus' plan to get a big crowd of thousands of people and launch Christianity with thousands of people. It was actually not that. That was not his plan. As a matter of fact, if you recall from Acts chapter 1, they only had 120 disciples on the day of Pentecost when Christianity got its big start on the day of Pentecost. It was not thousands and thousands of people. It was 120 people that had given their lives to Christ. Now, Jesus was always surrounded by large crowds. We do think that often Jesus was like a comet going through the sky where he had this big crowd of people with him and trailing on behind him. But he picked 12. Do you remember that there was also a time he sent out 72? Yeah. So he always had people around him, even people who were really following him in addition to the 12. Notice his strategy. I'm going to pick 12 out of this giant crowd, pull them close, train them, develop a relationship with them, and then when I die on a cross and get raised, they can spearhead spreading the gospel. So I love this saying. Well, let me read this. So a small group was Jesus' plan, not through the crowds. I want to read you a saying that I love from a philosopher that was not even a Christian, a woman named Margaret Mead. And she said this. She said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So here's a non-Christian woman who uses the word citizen because her context was politics and nation building. She caught on to what Jesus had done 2,000 years earlier. If you want to change the world, it happens one person at a time. Disciples of Jesus are not mass-produced. They're handcrafted one person at a time by God through Christians so that one at a time we become the crowd by individually all choosing to give our lives to Jesus Christ. And often a great conduit for that is the small group. So value of a small group. First of all, Jesus did it. So that's pretty good. Another one is it's a great environment for love. It's just a great place to be known, to not get lost in big church. The small group is small church that finds a home where you can know and be known. We'll talk about that a tiny bit more. But a small group is a great place to love each other. You remember this command by Jesus? "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Jesus actually said those words at the Last Supper right before he was going to die and be raised from the dead 3 days later. He's telling them, listen, you know how the last words of a dying person are important usually. He's like, one of the last things I got to tell you, if you read John 13, 14, and 15, Jesus says love, love, love all the time in different ways and in different contexts. He wanted us to love each other, and the small groups are a great conduit for that. So the small group is a great strategy to care for everyone, not only to love everyone, but to care for everyone. So a small group is a place where you can know others and be known by others. I want to use some catchphrases here. One of them is this: we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks. And so one strategy, not the only strategy, but a great strategy in big church is to encourage your people to join small groups so that if they have a need, if they have a tragedy, if they have a reason to celebrate, they got somebody who knows it, somebody who notices it, so people don't fall through the cracks. Could you go to one of our churches in big church and fall through the cracks? Hopefully not, but yes, you can. And so the small group is a strategy to try to make sure that people don't get lost in the crowd. Amen. We in the small groups are the first responders. If somebody goes into the hospital, who should respond first? Well, it doesn't have to be the small group, but usually it is the small group. If somebody just got married, just had a baby, just got engaged, in one of our small groups, Maurice and Maureen Mafood had their 50th wedding anniversary. And so yes, they've gone on to be with the Lord, so they're still celebrating. Who pitched that party? The small group. A lot of other people came, but the small group was the first responder, not just in bad news, but in good news as well. And you function, therefore, as a safety net so that people don't get neglected, overlooked, bypassed. The small group is a great strategy for that. So I want to talk now, thank you for paying attention on the purposes of small groups. I want to talk, our second thing is talking about choosing a purpose for small groups. And let's get into that. So why would you form a small group? Well, in our history, we have formed small groups for different reasons. It was not always uniform. So some groups are formed so that Christians in the church can build their friendships with one another. A second purpose is evangelistic outreach. That's a common one. Another one is this. This has been a little bit rare, but I think we're growing in this area, and that is for your small group, not just your larger congregation, but your small group to find ways to be involved, helping the poor, helping the needy, involved in community service. That can be a great purpose for your small group. You can have small groups that are a book club, that are a triathlon small group, a walking small group, a gardening small group, a dinner party small group. You can also have life station situations. You can form a small group for people who have been divorced, for people who are in chemical addiction recovery. You can have a small group for grief recovery. You can have small groups for marriage and parenting. I would like to let you know where the Broward Church landed on our purposes for small groups. I am not attempting to tell you what to do with your small groups. I'm just giving you an example for you to consider if you're reevaluating what you're doing in your church with your small groups and how you're going to participate in it. Here's what we decided to do in the small group. We would have 3 purposes in one group. So the group would be evangelistic. It would also be to build Christian friendships one with another, with an element of discipleship, and also to be involved in community service. So the small group leaders would determine the functions of the group, such as community service. And so we came up with this term, community group, and we use this phrase to build community and to reach community. And so the idea there is that in building community, you're building a community within your small group. So you're building friendships with the members of the church, friendships with visitors who are coming, friendships with people who have moved into your church. It's a welcoming place where you can build a community of friends within that small group. But then reaching community has 2 facets to it: evangelism and community service. So you're not only reaching in, building in, you're building out. You're reaching out to the community that your community group lives in. So you can serve the community and reach out to the community in evangelism. This solved a couple of problems for us. Here's one of the problems it solved. If your group is only about evangelism, what if you have no visitors? This is for the fun of it. How many of you ever been in a community group, Bible talk, small group, where you thought about canceling the meeting because there was no visitors? Has anybody ever lived through that? Oh, I'm aging out. I can see not a lot of people. All right. So there was a day when the small group was only evangelistic. And what would you do? You would teach the parable of the sower. You would teach something for your non-Christian friends. So if they didn't show up, you didn't know what to do with yourself, And so we found it was a much better idea to have an evangelistic element to the small group, but also to have a Christian friendship element to the small group as well. But on the other end of the spectrum, it avoids another problem. And that other problem is, sometimes you can form a small group and say, if you're not part of my small group, I don't want you as part of my small group. Like, we got a good thing going here with the 9 of us, the 12 of us, the 13 of us. We got good chemistry as friendship. You have not been invited into the clique. Please go away. Listen, I oversaw small groups at Broward Church, and I would have community group leaders, Bible talk leaders say, we got good, they would say what I just said. We got good chemistry, it's going well. And they were like, we need a triage process to figure out who we're letting in and who we're not letting in. So I would go, stop that. I would not slap them. But we just had to develop this idea that we're building community with an open door. With an open door to new church members and with an open door to visitors who are coming that might not even be Christians. So here's what we literally do in the Broward Church. Our evangelistic outreach is not primarily through small groups. Again, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just sharing with you a viewpoint. We think the first bounce is to invite people to Sunday church. Bounce number 2, what we encourage next is if a visitor comes on Sunday, we want to encourage them to come to a small group. So that's how we do it. Sunday first, we have found that 30 years ago, it was a little bit less socially awkward to invite somebody over to your house. Now it's not quite as smooth as it used to be. Nothing wrong with that. Like if you invite somebody to your small group, amen, more power to you. But we have found with strangers and using mass media, social media, we found it's a lot better to ask them to come to Sunday church and then help them find a small group. So the small groups in our church, our strategy is the door's open, we let people join the small groups whether they're members or not. Amen. How are you going to decide what people make up a small group? So here's a couple of things to consider for purposes of a small group. How important is geography in your small group? How important is life station? Do we want all the singles in small groups with only singles? Do we want to do that? Do we want campus only with campus? Look, these are not good or bad choices. These are strategic, tactical choices. Your ministry leaders and even you, if you're allowed to just form your own small group and pull together a small group, how would you like to go about that? So here's some things to consider. Do you want it intergenerational? Do you deliberately, some of our singles in our church would like to deliberately have young adult singles in a same small group with mature older adults, often married adults. They just think it's a good mix. And other people in our church would rather have the singles building friendships with other singles. Amen. Do you have an existing clique, and do you want to do that? Do you want to do the closed door group? Maybe I made fun of that too much, because if that's what you decide for the purpose of your small group, so be it. We just decided in Broward Church to be a little bit more open door about it. So a clique is a small group that wants you to go away. All right. So here's what we decided to do in Broward Church on the issue of geography, on the issue of life station, on the issue of these purposes of a small group. And that is to let the member criteria develop kind of naturally, rather than telling people, you need to be in a singles group, you need to be in a campus ministry group. We just let it develop in natural ways. So guys leading like Josh and Vane Franco lead our campus ministry. So if they want to do their campus students together in campus groups, that's a natural development. If they encourage their campus students to get in there with older adults to mature and have those intergenerational relationships, amen. That's a natural development through a ministry leader. So what we decided is we're not going to force the issue on geography. We're not going to force the issue on any other criteria. We just want people, here's our high priority in Broward Church. Go to a small group. That's our priority. Join a small group. If you want your small group to be 30 singles, who meet at the mall, whatever, God bless you in your work, But we're not going to, so in other words, we're not going to try to control it. We make suggestions rather than rules. I serve as an elder and as a minister, and we had to decide. How controlling are we going to be in this process, or how much are we going to give the members just like freedom to do what they thought was right, and we just tried to give them suggestions and guidance rather than laying down a lot of rules. We try to apply common sense and not force change. So these are just things that I'm suggesting to you guys to consider in your small groups. So let's go to our third topic we want to talk about out of the 4, which is ways of building loving, effective small groups. I hope you guys are okay with lists. I got 7 things. I'm going to come at you machine gun style. We're going to go kind of quickly through these 7 things. And then the 4th point, I got 6 things. So we're going to make it through 13 things. I just hope they're helpful. Building a loving group. What do you think about food? All right, and background music. You know what I don't like? Foreground music. I like background music. Have you ever had the music so loud that you cannot have a conversation? My suggestion, because I don't want to control the situation, don't do that, all right? Don't have super loud music in your small group. I think background music, especially as people are coming into your home, when they're first coming in, I suggest turning off the music when you're actually doing your Bible discussion. But I think if you're having snacks together or you sit down for a meal together, it might be nice to have some music in the background. Should you have food? Well, there are contexts where food is difficult to pull off. Like, I go way back. So I used to lead a small group in the dorms at the University of Florida campus. And so it wasn't always easy to serve food in the dorms with all these people coming in and out. And so here's my suggestion. If it's hard to have food, have food. Just have food. So if you're in the dorms, it might be considered really thoughtful and considerate of you if you buy a box of something that's salty and a box of something that's sweet, open the packages and let them tear into them, What I would encourage, though, I was talking to a brother named Andrew Fuentes, and we're going to circle back to his community group as an example here in a couple minutes. He says he really is concerned about presentation of the food to communicate one thing. You guys who are coming to my small group are not an afterthought. And the preparation for you guys to come over is not an afterthought. I care about the environment. So, look, I'm not very good at decorating the home or anything like that. Pam is like, thank goodness I'm married to, Pam. But I think if you're going to decorate it or lay it out in a beautiful way, I think that's a really good suggestion, especially for perhaps mature adults or young marrieds with kids. Make it nice. And I know that people bond over food. It makes conversation easier. Heaven is described as a feast, right? Food is a great thing. So second thing, warmth of environment. Have a clean home. I thought that would be a good idea. Have a clean home, an orderly home. I like the background music. The third suggestion I have goes right along with it. Have warmth and attentiveness of people. So, listen, if you have to be deliberate with the steady members of your small group, your community group, educate them and tell them this. We greet everybody, and we greet them warmly, and we're friendly, and we're happy. Please, y'all, be warm and inviting when people come in. Now, would Christians ever do this? Would you ever have 2 Christians who are good friends in such a deep conversation at the beginning of community group, at the beginning of Bible talk, that they completely ignore the new visitor who's sitting alone in a chair? Surely that would never happen. I pray to God to not be rude with the members of my Bible talk, but I'll peel them away from each other. I'll come up to members of the church who are mature enough to handle it. I'm saying, look, I think you should postpone your conversation and go meet the visitor. And they're like, oh, yes, right, And so they go do that. So please remember, there's a spiritual purpose going on. A lot of times, several different purposes going on all at the same time. Sometimes people are lonely. Sometimes they're grieving. Sometimes they're searching for God and they wonder if they came to the right place. All these things are going on. We don't know what's going on. Let's not leave the people alone, sitting alone in a chair when they're supposed to be socializing. Let's go help people, meet people, be warm, friendly, not as an artificial technique because, gee, we're Christians, So have thoughtful seating arrangements. So I want to go into this a little bit. I got a couple of different slides on this. Seating arrangements influence group interaction. So here's a little bit of theory. Small groups usually do better in circles than in rows. So if you can have an environment where you can have a circle, do that. Now, if you have a small group in an environment where you need to do like classroom seating, you can have a great small group with classroom seating. The one on the right, you can have a great small group. But if you have a choice, please don't do the rows, please do the circles. Where does the leader sit? In with everybody else, if at all possible. And so if you are, I know this is not a very good diagram, forgive my primitive graphics here, but if you're sitting as the leader of the group, if you're sitting behind a table, or if you're standing behind a lectern, behind a podium, please, this is just theory. This is statistical theory about group dynamics. Come out from behind the desk. Don't use the desk to sit behind. Join up with the group. Don't use a lectern and stand while people are seated unless your small group has 100 people. So then you're redefining small group right there. But if at all possible, come out from behind any obstacles between you and the group. Sit down if they're sitting. Stand up if they're standing. Join them where they're at. That is better dynamics for your group. Now, one last thing about seating. Sometimes your living room or your dining room or your family room or your study is not really going to easily allow a circle. So here's the thing. Try to have people where their vision and their line of talking communication is not blocked. So if you got a couch, don't put people behind the couch if they can't see around other people. So whatever strategy you need to use, this makes a difference. It makes a difference in whether visitors comment, members comment, whether they have conversations, or they feel alienated and left out. So think strategically, even about what seems like a little thing, and that is seating arrangements. So provide a comfortable and undistracting setting. So is it too hot in the room? Is it too cold in the room? Is it clean? Does it smell bad? So listen, I've been around a minute. I have been in small groups where it smelled bad. So if it's simple, like you can just throw out the trash, 8 hours beforehand. Don't warm up fish in the microwave. So I've had groups where we could not have the group because it was too noisy or too distracting. Like if you're having your small group at a coffee shop outside where everybody's looking at the traffic, that might work, but you have to make a judgment decision and say, is this too noisy and distracting to have an effective group? So please take those things into consideration in having a loving group. Have considerate Bible discussions. Here's what I mean by that. Please don't make your lesson too short, and please don't make your lesson too long. So, listen, this is a judgment call. There's no rules here. I'm going to give you some boundaries of conventional wisdom. There are guys in the church that are 20-minute men. And what I mean by that is they believe that the longest a small group discussion should go is 20 minutes. I'm a 45-minute man. No, really. If I can get a group where the conversation is humming, where we're getting a lot of conversation and we're pulling the truth out of the Bible text, we're going to go until we don't go. We're going to go until people get bored or distracted. But as long as it's lively and it's humming, then I'll try to end my thing at the longest at 45 minutes. This is not a rule. Here's what I'm suggesting. Somewhere between 20 minutes and 45 minutes. Do you believe the Bible is boring? There are community group leaders that treat the Bible like it's boring. What I need to do with my small group is have the shortest Bible study possible, because we know that's the low point of the small group. There are people who think that way. The Bible study is the low. What we really need is dinner and great conversation. Look, I agree with that. Don't play down the Bible. Amen. There are people getting in their car and driving to your home to hear the Bible. So if you do 5 or 10 minutes, you think you're doing them a favor, but maybe you're not. Maybe they came because they love God. You know, and I'm sorry I'm being sarcastic. I apologize. I'm being inconsiderate about having a considerate Bible study. So sorry about that. So, all right, respond to people's desire to grow and change. I hope I can find the right words to communicate how important this 15-minute period of time is. When your small group Bible discussion ends, it could be the most important 15 minutes in a person's entire eternity. Wow. Because they just heard the Bible. Maybe they're a new visitor. Maybe they're a new member. Maybe they're a brand new Christian, and they got something on their heart. Think twice before you talk about the Miami Dolphins. You know, here's what I would suggest. You don't have to force spiritual conversation, but test the waters. Like you can say, look, hey, do you have any thoughts or you have any comments you wanted to make about the Bible discussion, or, you know, what'd you think of the lesson tonight? And if they're like, well, I'd rather talk about the Dolphins, then you can go with that. Maybe a year later, they're open up. I had a guy I asked him to study the Bible over and over again. His name's Doug Warr. He's a member of the Detroit church. And he said, Joe, I'll tell you when I'm ready to study the Bible. And it was a year later. And he told me, I'm ready to study the Bible. And a week later, we baptized him. So if you got to talk about the Dolphins for the sake of Christ, do that. There are opportunities after Sunday church and opportunities after your small group meeting that could change the eternity of a person's life direction. Did I communicate that okay? Like, please don't miss that opportunity. Please don't miss an opportunity to have a potentially life-changing talk. And you know, this is not just about becoming a Christian. A lot of times your members who are already Christians may have something heavy on their heart, or an idea they're excited about that's a positive thing, or a problem they're going through. Please be open. Listen, I'm not just talking to the Bible Talk leaders. Members too, be open to meeting a need as you go along. And so be responsive if needs arise. If you're in a small group and somebody in your small group goes into the hospital, I would dare say you cannot shrug that off. You're not the person to shrug that off because they're in your small group. Like if somebody barely knows them as an acquaintance, maybe they're not going to do hospital visitation for that person, but you are their small group. And so you ought to be the first line of love. Do you know what I mean? The first line of response for people. Please, when the needs come up, realize if it's in the small group, you're the first people that ought to respond to that. And I do want to talk about Andrew and Andrea Fuentes' group. So isn't that a happy little group? You might, down in the far right is Jason. He leads our worship team. You'll see him up here during the FDC. This is a wonderful little small group. What are they doing right now? Well, Derek and Natalie Isla are about to have a baby, and they threw a baby shower. That's the kind of thing that's great for a small group. This small group right here is pretty extraordinary on being responsive. So I have some other things I'd like to share with you in addition to the baby shower. Andrea's mother was the only member of our church who died of COVID during the pandemic. And the small group was I'm sorry, it chokes me up a little. The small group was very responsive, and so Jason and the other guys in the small group, they went to Andrew, and he goes, look, I know you and especially your wife, because it was her mother, are deeply grieving. We've got the small group like forever until you're ready. Like, we will lead the studies, we will host the groups, we will get the food. You don't have to think a single thing about the small group. You don't have to come to the small group if you're grieving too much. And they basically took it over for weeks, or I think it was actually months, that they took over for Andrew and Andrea to meet that particular need. There was a mother of a member. She was not a church member, but a mother of one of these members who had gone through a chemical addiction program that was so intense that it had a halfway house that the mother was living in. And the mother was finally ready to come home to her house after having months and months of addiction rehab. Her home was in shambles because it was left the way she was living when she was strongly addicted. So the small group decided, we're going to take this over. So they all came over to the house many different times. They literally did, what do you call it, restoration? When you fix up something in the house, you know, like they did restoration, they fixed it up, they cleaned the yard, they cleaned the house. They completely did it so when she came home, it felt like a second chance rather than going back to the life she was living as an addict. And I have more stories, but I don't have time. Yes, I think that's an example worthy of praise. That's how a small group ought to work. So we're in the home stretch. So let me give you 6 ideas for improving your small group. What can you do to improve your small group? May I speak to the leaders first? So, leaders. I'm not talking about small group leaders. Elders, evangelists, deacons. Consider promoting your small groups more publicly. We appointed, with Marcus Overstreet's help, he's right here in the front, we appointed Tony and Cassandra as evangelists and women's ministry leader in 2016. And Tony said, you know what I think our first strategy ought to be is to recommit, reinvigorate our small groups. And so we did that. For some reason, Tony decided this is my highest priority in 2016 is, to get people going to small groups. And we began to keep statistics, and eventually we reached a point where 90% of the church membership was actively involved in small groups. That took a lot of intentionality. Talking about it, promoting it, bringing up the good news of what small groups are all about. If you're a leader in a church, how are your small groups doing? Do you realize, fellow leader, that your small group are the first responders? Your small group is the safety net. It's not the only safety net. It might be the best safety net for the health, the flourishing, the thriving of your whole congregation. Should you reinvigorate your small groups, I would encourage it. It was very helpful to us and still is in the Broward Church. Back to individuals, all of us, joyfully and actively serve in your small group. Don't wait on other people to bring the food, right? So jump in. If they need help rearranging the furniture, cleaning up the home, whatever they need help with, have an attitude in your small group, a Christ-like attitude of being a servant. Amen? So a third thing, adjust for member situations. What is your group like? What's it like? So I was talking to a small group leader a couple of weeks ago, and they meet over Zoom. Can you guys go, ooh? They meet over Zoom. Well, why do they meet over Zoom? Because almost everybody in the group is much older than the average person. They're elderly. They don't have rides. They don't have cars. And so they've asked the leaders, can we meet over Zoom at least a percentage of the time? It's hard to even get a ride to the group. And so you need to consider, I'm not suggesting just doing that for the elderly. My whole point is this. Where is your group at? What works for your group? And I'm going to give you another example, and that is, what if you're a group of married people with small children? So there was a group, Oju and Carolyn DK, they had more small children than they had adult members. And so they came up with this idea. This was not like the eldership leader idea. Oju and Carolyn came up with this idea along with Ricky and Anne-Marie. They said they're only going to meet one time a month because it's exhausting to chase all the kids around. So they're only going to meet one time a month, and sometimes when they meet in that one time a month, they're going to meet Saturday at the park so we can watch the kids play while the parents talk with each other. The remainder of the month, the men would stay at home with the kids while the women met together, and then they would switch. The women would stay home with the children, and the men would meet together. Do you see how they're meeting a need for their particular situation? And so this group kind of morphed into more of a discipleship group for the men and a discipleship group for the women, although they still met once a month all together. And that was exactly what they needed. Amen. And so I just think, be aware of the needs of your group and adjust to it. Meet consistently and urge attendance. You do not have because you do not ask. Like if only half the people are showing, I'm going to give you an example. All right, there was a guy who was leading a small group. I won't tell you his name, but his initials were Vince Pompa. And so Vince was very discouraged that his group was not attending. I'm not suggesting this for everybody, but he goes, Joe, he was talking to me about it, he goes, I'm quitting. We're not quitting leadership. We're going to stop the small group because I won't come. I said, I tell you what, let's try this first. Tell them that. Tell everybody in your group individually, we're going to stop the small group because you open up your home and you bring the food and you plan a lesson and nobody shows up. He called everyone in his group and he said, look, July 1st, we're stopping the group unless you guys all show up. His group that was years ago. His group's so much better permanently because he called for action. And the group came and they didn't have to shut down July 1st. Consider adding discipleships to your group. I'll leave that up to you. Find training. I want to let you know about a resource. The Broward Church has 15 videos for community group leaders. If you're a small group leader, consider tracking this down on YouTube. You can find it by that search right there, Small Group Circle. That's the name of the video series, Small Group Circle Broward. Each lesson is only between 15 and 20 minutes. You might find it helpful. Listen, let us care about our groups. Let us have groups that make an impact. Let it be a home away from home for people, a spiritual family in addition to a physical family. Thank you for your time. Let's have a good fellowship.